Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the masterclass on burnout called Conquer Burnout and Truly Thrive. I am Dr. Zarya Rubin, and I will be your guide and your host today for this amazing journey. So, yeah, if you are watching the replay, feel free to take notes. And if you have questions, you can always message me with your questions later. You can always send me an email or contact me via social media. So I hope to hear from you soon. All right, let's get started. So, about me, who am I? I'm a physician, a functional medicine health coach, and a keynote speaker. I love speaking about burnout because it is something near and dear to my heart, something that I have experienced personally more times than I would care to admit. And I love helping passionate women in midlife overcome chronic stress and burnout so they can heal from the inside out and truly thrive. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you become a burnout coach without having gone through it personally. So I'm going to share a little bit about my story and my journey, especially the most significant burnout that I experienced and how it changed my life and the trajectory of my career. So, a bit about my story. And if you have a burnout story that you want to share, I am all ears. I would love to hear it. I would love for you to share privately with me in an email or a message, or even in my private Facebook group, which I run for women. It's a free private Facebook group, and I'll give you the info at the end on how to join. So, success. Yeah, let's talk about it. I was very, very successful. I was living in New York City. This was 5 years after 9/11. I was completing my fellowship in a neurological subspecialty in epilepsy at Columbia, the prestigious Columbia University in New York City. And I had already graduated from Harvard and McGill, and I was on my way to the top of my field. I was living the Sex and the City lifestyle, minus the shoes, minus the beautiful brownstone in the West Village, and yeah, definitely minus the sex also. So I think I was supposed to be feeling like everything was just amazing and that my life was on track. And I was supposed to be, I think, feeling the happiest that I'd ever been. That wasn't quite the case. Every day I felt exhausted. I couldn't get out of bed. I just was dragging my feet. I dreaded going to work every day. Like every day the alarm would go off and I would just be like, no, this is not happening. Hit snooze. I would, at the very last possible minute, get ready to leave. I had terrible sleep. I had insomnia. I had nightmares. I literally had nightmares every night of my life when I was in medicine. I had anxiety. I even had panic attacks, which I wrote off as just part of my personality, that I'm very anxious, I'm very neurotic, and I didn't make the connection between work and what was going on for me emotionally, psychologically, and physically. I was very irritable. I had no patience for anything or anyone, constantly snapping at people, at nurses, at other physicians. It was just, it was not great. And I also was suffering from something called compassion fatigue, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And it's something that is often a feature of burnout, and it's somewhat unique to healthcare professionals and folks in caring professions, that you start to actually become overwhelmed with the pain and the suffering and the trauma, and you start to develop a lack of empathy and a lack of compassion for others. And then you actually start to feel really bad about it, which I did. And you obviously don't want to tell anyone because it feels awful. And you're like, I went into medicine because I really love helping people and I care about people so much. And now I just feel like this lack of compassion. It was really, really challenging. And you'll see here in this lovely photo, that's the C train. That is the train that I took to work every day, from the Upper West Side all the way to Washington Heights, in the Heights, which is where I worked. And although I didn't feel like I was a suicidal person or depressed, every morning, literally, the train would be coming, and I would think to myself, do I get on it or do I jump in front of it? And that was a huge red flag for me. I mean, I just thought to myself, this is not good. And yet, I didn't do anything about it. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't seek help. I didn't seek counseling. There weren't really any resources provided to me in my training program. Certainly wasn't anything through the hospital. I didn't feel like there was any option. I couldn't quit. How could I quit? You can't quit medicine. I was almost at the end of my training. I had a mountain of debt that I thought I would never dig my way out of unless I became, a doctor. And how could I not be a doctor? It was tied up in my identity, my sense of self, who I am. It was more than just a job for me. It was the very definition of my existence, of who I was as a human being. What else could I do? I mean, what do you do if you're not a doctor? You can't do anything. This is what I taught myself. This is what I told myself. And how would I tell people? I mean, nobody quits their dream job. I started, you know, having the dream of being a doctor, becoming a doctor when I was 5 years old. I had constantly told people that was what I was doing with my life. How could I then tell them that I quit? It was just too shameful and embarrassing. And I felt like there was no way out. And apparently, this feeling is quite common in medicine. And that is why suicide rates are so high in the profession, because you feel like you are trapped and there is no way out. So, what happened next? Well, something happened that changed my entire world in an instant, that it turned everything upside down. And really, I can look back on my life and say that that is the moment that everything changed. One night, I got a phone call from my best friend. Picked up the phone, I said hello. She didn't sound like herself, and she started telling me a story of what had happened that night, that her husband had been playing frisbee. He collapsed on the field. They did CPR. They rushed him to the hospital. And I said, "Oh my God, but he's okay, right? I mean, they resuscitated him and he's fine now." And she said, "No, he died." And the phone nearly fell out of my hand. I couldn't believe that this had happened to my best friend, to someone I knew well, to someone who was my age. How did this tragedy happen? And how did it impact my life? Well, I suddenly realized that my life could end at any moment. And is this the way I wanted to spend it? Feeling so at the end of my capacity, so burned out, so lifeless. I was hardly living as it was. And in that moment, a window opened up that really showed me that maybe there was a way out. If there was, I was going to find it, because I could not continue in medicine. I couldn't continue to live my life like this, thinking that maybe one day things would change. Maybe one day I'd be happy. Maybe one day I wouldn't feel this awful. I knew that that one day had to be today. And I also knew that I had to do something different, and that I couldn't dream about retirement. I was 30, in my early 30s, and I was already dreaming about retirement, which I knew was a huge problem. And so this quote came up for me: no matter how far you've gone down the wrong road, turn back. And this quote also changed everything. It gave me permission to leave medicine. Medicine was the wrong road. It was never going to take me where I wanted to go. I was driving all the way to Alabama when I needed to go to Vancouver, BC. You can go so far down the wrong road. You can run out of gas, your car can break down, you can be stranded in the desert. with no food, it doesn't matter. You're never going to get where you need to be if you're on that road. And so this saying, this quote really resonated with me. And I don't know if it resonates with you, but it was this beautiful permission that it gave me to change my life. So I hope that today we might change your life. I felt so stuck when I was burned out, when I was in medicine. I felt like there was no way forward. There was no option. There was nothing I could do to change things. And I'm not saying that quitting your job is necessarily the answer or that you have to quit your job in order to recover from burnout or be happy. It's often part of the equation. It's often not the whole equation, but let's get unstuck here today together. Okay, we're going to just do a quick overview of what we're going to cover today. Some definitions. What is burnout? Burnout versus stress. How are they different? How are they similar? Talk about some scary stats that are out there. Self-care, what does it look like? A little bit of a dirty word these days, but it doesn't have to be, to figure out how to make it work for you. And we're going to do a little bit of fun. We're going to do some breathing exercises together. We're going to talk about types of rest. We're going to commit to ourselves and to changing our lives today. There's going to be some wrap up and Q&A, and you can always message me your questions if you're watching the replay. And there's going to be some special offers and giveaways at the end, as well as ways to get in touch with me and different ways to work together moving forward, especially if you like this masterclass and you want to spend more time together. Let's get started. What is burnout? Well, here's this little diagram that shows the intersection of exhaustion, cynicism, and inefficiency. And burnout is defined as a state of emotional, mental, and often physical exhaustion brought on by prolonged or repeated stress. Though it's most often caused by problems at work, it can also show up in other areas of life. Parenting. I don't know if anyone is a parent has experienced burnout as a result. I certainly did later in life. Caretaking, or even romantic relationships. Anything can lead to burnout given the right set of circumstances. So while the job can be critically important in terms of a factor, it's more than just long hours. It's too many tasks. Often the tasks require a high degree of vigilance. They're often very important tasks that can't just be done mindlessly. There's a lot of decisions being made, and it's a very stressful job. Lack of control, tasks that compete with your sense of self, things that you just feel like are not quite right. Maybe you're working at an organization that you don't believe in, or you're working on a project that seems wrong to you. That can make it more likely that burnout can show up. Lack of support. There's often just a work culture and a certain environment that is very, very unsupportive. Nobody talks about burnout. Nobody talks about needing to step back or take a break. It's just go, 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 hustle, hustle. And oh my gosh, you want to take a day off? What's wrong with you? Be a team player. Working towards a goal that doesn't resonate. We talked a bit about that. No breaks, no recognition, feeling like your work is unappreciated or that there's no room for advancement or improvement. And then this thing called compassion fatigue, which I touched on before. So folks who work in any kind of healing or helping or caring profession, where you're exposed to a lot of suffering and pain and trauma. So it could be medicine, could be nursing, could be emergency medicine technician, could even be teaching in certain circumstances, caregiving. There's something called compassion fatigue, but there's a lot of overlap with burnout where you are just so overwhelmed by the amount of pain and suffering and empathy that you end up shutting down and actually starting to feel a lack of compassion. And then that feels really bad too, because you think, I should care more. Why don't I care? But there's nothing left in the tank to care. Okay, let's talk a little bit about stress versus burnout and, how they're related. Stress is an interesting concept. We've all been familiar with it, and it sort of comes from the world of engineering and material load and stress and strain on a structure or material. And it refers to the mismatch between the demands and the capacity that you're experiencing. And it can be a perceived mismatch. So you might feel like you just can't do the tasks that you're being asked to do at the level at which you want to do them in the time frame that you're being asked to do them, and it just feels like too much. So stress can be acute, episodic, or chronic. It's a little different from burnout. So acute stress might be something like a car accident. It's very sudden, it's very stressful. It happens, one time and that's it. And it can obviously really shake things up. Episodic stress is stress that recurs on a regular, often predictable basis. Like, let's say you have a really long commute to work and there's lots of traffic and you're swearing at the other drivers and people are cutting you off and it's awful. And every single morning and every afternoon, you're stuck in this commute and it's this recurrent episodic stress that you come to dread and expect. Chronic stress is what happens when stress extends over a long period of time and it doesn't really let up. Something like parenting can definitely be viewed as a chronic form of stress, depending on the circumstances. And prolonged stress can lead to burnout. Stress is often thought of as a heightened nervous system state. So you've got a lot of overdrive, a lot of hyperstimulation, heart racing, palms sweaty, feeling really agitated and overstimulated, whereas burnout is kind of more at the other end of the spectrum. It's a little more of a lower state. There is some overlap with depression. It's not quite depression, but you just feel exhausted, unmotivated, unable to function, unable to care, unable to really generate a lot of energy or emotion. And so stress plus apathy plus hopelessness can lead to burnout. That's a little equation. And I created this diagram just to illustrate the progression from mild stress to moderate stress to chronic stress to severe chronic stress and ultimately leading to burnout. So it might start out as a mild stress, it can continue to progress, it can intensify, become chronic, and eventually, given the right conditions, can become burnout. Okay, signs and symptoms of burnout. See if any of these sound familiar. Now, there is a lot of overlap with chronic stress. And in fact, this diagram is taken from a physiology of chronic stress article that I was researching for this talk. And really, it can impact so many different areas of the body. Some of the common symptoms and signs are exhaustion, just a real profound exhaustion. It's more than just, oh, I'm tired. It's like bone tired. Irritability, lack of concentration, like you just can't focus on your work. You're not interested or motivated, and the things that you used to enjoy and love no longer give you pleasure. Anxiety, even to the point of panic attacks, can occur. Poor sleep is often a feature of burnout. Insomnia, nightmares, skin issues, breakouts, rashes, hives, headaches, muscle tension, jaw tension. Oh my goodness, I had such severe TMJ when I was suffering with burnout, and I don't have it anymore. And then, of course, there are the coping mechanisms that we often sometimes employ that can really be detrimental in the end. So, using food to cope, using unhealthy food, using drugs or alcohol to cope, to try to lift your mood, to try to like numb from what's going on at work. And I think that I certainly used alcohol to excess in medicine. I think it's a real problem with the culture that it's like a work hard, play hard thing where you work super hard during the week, and on the weekends that you're not on call, you're just going out and partying and drinking, binge drinking even. And yeah, it was definitely dysfunctional. And then that makes you more susceptible to poor sleep, anxiety, stress, all the things, all the stress that it puts on your body. And then, of course, there are the longer term health concerns that can arise as a result of chronic stress and burnout. Puts you at risk for things like high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, poor immune function, all related to the prolonged exposure to hormones, to the effects on the cardiovascular system. And I know certainly personally, I was sick all the time. I was always, getting whatever bug was going around. Risk factors. So, what makes one person more at risk for burnout than another? Well, that's a good question. And it's a combination of things. It's not just the work environment, it's also part of the person and who you are and what you bring to the table in the equation. So, history of depression or anxiety definitely puts you at higher risk. Interestingly, I came across this data when I was researching this talk. A history of childhood trauma puts you at risk of burnout later in adult life. I find that fascinating and really rings true in many ways. Sleep deprivation. Of course, that was baked into the job in medicine, and so was a lack of work life balance. There was no such thing as work life balance. You had no life. Personality traits like perfectionism and pessimism. Who here is a recovering perfectionist or active perfectionist? I'm trying really hard. So, perfectionism really does put you at risk for burnout because you have so much pressure on yourself and you have such high expectations for performing that it really just puts that extra strain. Lack of social support, feeling isolated. I think this is really important. We need our community. We need people around us to lift us up, to also tell us that we're not alone, that we're not the only ones struggling, that maybe other people are as well. Maybe there's something that needs to change in the culture or the infrastructure of the organization. Being female, shocker, we are at higher risk of burnout, like so many other mental health conditions, whether this is a function of our biology, of our hormones, or whether it's more likely that as women, we are asked to take on so much in society, both at work and at home, that puts us at risk for burnout. Being a parent, working a job that involves caring for others, like this compassion fatigue that I spoke about, a difficult family life, dealing with illness, and financial worries that make the job stress even worse and make you feel like there's no way out and you can't quit. I certainly know what that felt like. And then, of course, a little something called the pandemic made everything worse over the last 3 years. Burnout rates have skyrocketed. It's become an epidemic. People are quitting. There's quiet quitting, and then there's just quitting. And the burnout's not getting better, even though the pandemic is slowly dissipating, the burnout rates are remaining the same. And some of the research here shows that up to 79% of employees said that they've experienced some form of burnout, 59% experiencing moderate or more severe levels of burnout. 42% of women say they experience burnout on a regular basis compared to 35% of men. Again, the higher risk. And 1 in 3 women considered downsizing their career or leaving work altogether in 2021. I think it's just all become too much with the pandemic on top of everything else and all the expectations placed on us. The perfect storm. I like to think of burnout as the perfect storm, that it's a combination of things. It's not just one thing. It's not just a terrible job, although a terrible job that's a really bad fit can certainly prime you for burnout. Your personality is part of the equation. Your temperament. Do you have a tendency to be a perfectionist or overly empathic? I was a super empath, and that was a really actually detrimental thing in medicine. I thought it was actually great for medicine, actually the worst thing possible. And then, of course, this other element of childhood trauma that I don't think is really ever spoken about or addressed in burnout, certainly not talked about by HR or when trying to establish like what's a good job fit or what can be changed about the environment to help someone struggling with burnout. There is no one factor contributing to burnout. It's a perfect storm of past and present circumstances along with your temperament, but it's not your fault. I came up with this and I came up with this quote. You are not a failure. You're just human. And I searched it. I Googled it. I was like, did I steal this quote from somewhere? No, I think I actually came up with it because it really resonates for me. And I think that when you are struggling with burnout, you do feel like a failure. You feel like, what's wrong with me? Why do I let things bother me so much? Why can't I just do this job like everyone else? But you're not a failure. And remember, you can't pour from an empty cup. I think this is really worth remembering, that we keep trying to give and trying to give and trying to perform. And if you have no gas in the tank, it's just you're not going to go anywhere. You can push the system, but eventually it's going to break. And I just wanted to share with you all some beautiful quotes from this book. This beautiful book that is called Heart Talk. And I'm trying to find the page that I was on. I have some beautiful quotes here that this book is so inspiring, so good. And I really feel like it gosh, I'm trying to find the page I was on before. I had it earlier today. Um, let's see. We're gonna find it. We're gonna find it. We're gonna find it. Because these quotes are so great and they really resonate. They really resonated with me. Oh my gosh, why is this not showing up? Oh, here we go. Silly me. I had the page marked and then I closed the book. So, just going to read a little bit from this book and just try to stay open to these messages. It's such a great book, Heart Talk by Cleo Wade. And it really is so fabulous. Life does not always hand us the easy road. Life does not always allow for us to be in the right frame of mind, to always do the right thing at the right time. To know this is to remember that you are human. We are not born knowing the best way to navigate the worst circumstances. We are all more than our mistakes. Our mistakes do not make us bad people. Our mistakes, when met with awareness and personal responsibility, are actually what introduce us to our best selves. You are beautiful because of all of your experiences, the good, the bad, and the imperfect. I have a couple more here. This is a little poem called How to Keep Going. It's 4 lines. Pause. Breathe. Repair your universe. Proceed. And this last quote really hit home for me. We all require healing at one point or another. Take the time to heal your wounds. Take time to heal your heart. It does no good to think about running the marathon when you still have a broken foot. So I hope that resonated for you. And I feel like with a burnout, we really just try to run the marathon with a broken foot. And it's impossible. It doesn't make any sense. We have to pause. We have to stop. We have to heal. We have to rest. So, what can we do about it? We're going to move on to the portion of the talk where we move into action. We move into practical things that we can do to help ourselves, to heal, to build more strength, to build more resilience. So let's dive in. Tools to beat burnout. First things first, they seem like simple things, but they really help to prevent the stress in the first place. Number one, make sure you get enough sleep. I know it sounds ridiculous. It's like, get enough sleep, but we don't. We stay up too late. We're on Netflix. We're doom scrolling. I know myself. I stay up too late. Sometimes I have a really great book that I can't put down. But sleep is the cornerstone and foundational aspect of health. And if you don't get good sleep, everything else suffers. And it really saps your energy and your resilience and your ability to function the next day. And it also helps you make really bad food choices. So when you're sleep deprived, studies have shown that you make bad food choices. You go for the extreme processed, refined carbs and sugars and fried foods. So that glazed donut is starting to look really good for breakfast. And that huge piece of chocolate cake is looking amazing for lunch, for dessert. And so eating healthy food that fuels you and that sends you messages, because food is more than just fuel. It is actually code that tells your body whether it's safe or whether there's a high alert or danger. And foods that are unhealthy and that are toxic and that require a lot of processing take energy away from your body to be able to handle other things like stress, as opposed to really nourishing food that's got nutrients and vitamins and minerals and elements that help us heal and revive and restore. It's going to be a lot more beneficial. Moving your body in ways that are nourishing and not stressful. So, like, yeah, notice I didn't say exercise, because sometimes people think exercise means running on a treadmill for an hour at high speed and doing like heavy duty, high intensity, high impact aerobic classes or whatnot. And that, when you're struggling with burnout and your system is really depleted, those types of high adrenaline, high intensity, high cardio activities can really, really actually make things worse and make you more fatigued and have less ability to cope. Quieter exercise, more strength training, going for long walks, going for short walks, getting some fresh air, all of those things can help. My favorite mantra that I teach all my clients: do one thing less, right? It sounds crazy. It's really kind of an act of defiance in this hustle culture that's always telling us to do more, do more, do more, do more, and telling you to do one thing less. So, the analogy I like to use is like, let's say you've got all these dishes and you're trying to clear the table and you've got all these plates and all these dishes, and then you notice that there's a cup over there and you think, oh, I should really just pick up that cup and clear it. And then when you do that, things get out of balance and all the dishes crash down and smash on the floor. When in reality, you should just not have picked up that cup. Don't pick up the cup, people. Leave the cup. Step away from the cup. Okay? Do one thing less. Managing stress. So stress happens, you know? Stress happens, and what can you do when it does occur? Well, you try to manage it. So when you're starting to feel that feeling of like, oh my gosh, I've got too much on my plate, I'm too overwhelmed, I have too many tasks, I can't keep track of them, oh my gosh, what's going on? Take a moment, do a brain dump, write a list. Sometimes writing things down and seeing them in front of you on pen and paper, I like that sometimes even better than a virtual list, can really help just contain things and things don't feel as all over the place and as overwhelming. Some people like to keep a notebook and a pen by their bedside if they tend to get a racing mind at night and they tend to not be able to sleep because they're thinking, "Oh my gosh, I forgot that thing, and then I have to do the thing for my kid, and then I have to submit this form, and da da da." I'm like, write it down. Just get it out of your brain so that you can let go of it. Speaking up and making your concerns heard. This one is really tricky, especially for women, especially in the workplace. But we have to do it. We'll just say, oh, yeah, sure. Okay, I'll take on that extra project. Okay, I'll work late. I'll work overtime. I'll work on the weekends. Okay, I won't take that vacation that I said I was going to take. It's fine. It's all good. No, you can stand up for yourself and speak up, especially when there's a work environment or a work culture that is not healthy and that's detrimental. And probably if you speak to others, they probably feel the same way. If you all get together, there's strength in numbers. Completing the stress cycle with self care that works for you. Okay, this is a really important concept, and I don't think we have enough time to go over it today. But basically, it's the notion that there's the stressful event itself, and then there's the stressful feelings and emotions and hormones that accumulate inside the body that when the stressful event is over, they're still there and you might still feel them. And you have to get rid of them somehow. You have to find a way to discharge them. Like let's say you have some sort of heated discussion on Facebook. When the discussion's over, the comments are over, but you might be carrying it around with you for days. You got to let it go. You got to find a way, whether that's going for a walk, whether it's singing in the shower or dancing in your living room. Figure out a way to discharge that stress to complete the cycle. Setting boundaries. Boundaries, I'm learning, in this work that I do and in my own personal study and journey that they are so important for preventing and healing from burnout, setting boundaries, knowing your limits. I think a lot of us who burn out, we don't know our limits or we think we don't have any. We think we're superhuman and we can just push through anything. Well, you can, but eventually it's going to come back and bite you. So get in touch with your limits. Start to feel what that feels like in your body and start to pause earlier. Like I used to get to the point where I would almost feel feverish because I had worked so hard. And and that was a signal to me to keep going, push through. And now it's a signal to me to stop and probably also to drink some water. Very simple. We often don't drink enough water. Mm. No is a complete sentence. Yeah. We often feel like we have to explain or justify or do all these things or do all these dances. No is fine. Get used to it. Practice it under low stakes situations and circumstances. And then, it becomes easier to say in harder situations. You get to decide. I think when we're suffering with burnout and struggling, we feel like we don't have any agency and that we're trapped and we're stuck and we can't do anything different. There's no other way. But you do get to decide. There is always a way. And definitely, definitely ask for help. Help is so important. Help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. So, whether that's speaking to a friend, a coworker, a family member, a professional, definitely, definitely ask for help. Building resilience. So, I like to build a toolkit with my clients of resilience that they can build up and during when things are calm and when things are under control and they can pull them out and use them kind of like a little Swiss Army knife of self-care that they can use in circumstances where there's more stress and pull these techniques out and they work for you. So things like deep breathing. We're going to do a little bit of deep breathing in a minute. Starting a meditation practice. And that can be really simple. It doesn't have to be this long, involved, super intense thing. I teach people how to meditate very simply, a couple minutes a day in ways that maybe you've never even thought of that work for you. If you feel like, oh, I hate meditation. It's funny, I used to say, I'm too stressed to meditate. Hilarious. Like I needed meditation more than ever. Discover what recharges you. What is your thing? Is it drawing? Is it singing? For me, it's singing. Is it going for a walk in nature? That's amazing too. Is it phoning a friend? Like, what would help recharge your batteries? And then do that on a regular basis. Make sure you don't go for long stretches of time without doing those special things that refill you and fill you up and really make you feel like, yeah, I can keep going. What I don't want people to take away from this is that I want you to build more tolerance to stress. It's interesting because clients often come to me and they say, you have to help me build more tolerance. I just need to be more tolerant to stress. And I say, no, you need to be less tolerant to stress, right? So you need to actually tune in to the stress in your life and actually accept less of it. Don't take on more and more and be like, oh, I need to be able to absorb more and more stress. No, we need to recognize it and then refuse to take it on. Take care of ourselves, pause, take on less. Just recharge your batteries. Don't take on more. Become resilient, but not more tolerant. And then once again, I can't reiterate enough that seeking help from a qualified professional, whether it's a therapist or a coach, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or whether you do have good workplace resources, it's so important, especially if you are having any negative thoughts about yourself, about self-harm or others. You got to get off this webinar right now and call a mental health hotline, call a physician, or a therapist right away because I don't want you to suffer in silence any longer than you have. It's time to take action and seek help. So important. Okay, these are just some images I put together that symbolize rest and reset and recharge, and whether it's meditation or yoga or reading in the bath. It looks really lovely. I really want to eat whatever this like tofu situation is down here. It looks so good. I don't know about you, but I'm getting hungry. So figure out what that means for you, what those self-care practices or items look like for you. Okay. I love talking about rest and about people are like, there's 7 types of rest. What? I thought rest is like, okay, I'm gonna take a rest. I'm resting. I'm resting. But sometimes rest isn't enough. Sometimes taking a nap or sleeping isn't enough. It's not the type of rest you need. And so that's physical rest, right? So actually sleeping or, physically taking a load off your body, that's physical rest. But there's all these other types. And there's mental rest, especially if you have a job that's very mentally demanding with a lot of calculating or a lot of decision making. And then that can cause a lot of mental fatigue. If you're juggling so many different things, if you've got family, you've got work, you've got all this stuff, that can cause a lot of mental load and require mental rest. Social rest is an interesting one. So I think for introverts, that looks more like not engaging in social activity, taking a step back, taking some time by yourself, recharge your batteries. For extroverts like us, sometimes that involves seeking out social activity. Like for me, I recharge my batteries by being in a social environment. And at the pandemic was like I was exhausted from being alone so much, and I needed that social piece of the puzzle. A sensory rest, my gosh, we're all so bombarded by screens and blue light and pings and dings and notifications and all and the noise, constant noise pollution that's out there. And so I think sensory rest is really important for us. Emotional rest, spiritual rest, that one can be a little harder to quantify depending on what spiritual practices look like for you. And creative rest. I mean, if you're a creator and you're constantly trying to create, I mean, sometimes you just need a break and to reach that and recharge. Go out in nature, go to a museum and just calm your mind and absorb the creativity. Okay, it is now time for the breathing portion of this program. So, what we're going to do is we're going to breathe together. I'm going to teach you 2 quick techniques. The first is called box breathing. And you can use this anytime when you just want to bring your stress levels and your nervous system down. So any kind of deliberate, so breathing is an automatic function. We don't think about it. We breathe. When you consciously breathe and take deep breaths, you are activating the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the opposite of the fight or flight nervous system, which is the sympathetic. The parasympathetic is the rest and digest and chill and everything's wonderful and everything's safe nervous system. And that's the one that we want to activate. And that's the one that we're often not living in. So if you think of a box like a square, we're going to breathe in through the nose, hold, breathe out through the mouth, hold, breathe in through the nose, hold, out through the mouth, hold. So it's in, hold, out, hold, in, hold, out, hold. You can close your eyes. You can imagine this box being traced as you feel your lungs expand and you feel them contract. How did that feel? Easy, right? Calming, centering, grounding. You can do this anytime. It's free. The next little breathing exercise is called the 4-7-8 breath. And it was pioneered by Dr. Andrew Weil, who's an integrative medicine specialist over in Arizona. And he's a really cool dude. And this breath is similar to the box breathing. It's a little different. What you're going to do is like a count of 4, count of 7, count of 8. So you're going to breathe in through the nose for a count of 4. You're going to hold that breath for a count of 7. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're going to breathe out through the mouth for a count of 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So those are long counts. So you're going to want to pace yourself. So you're going to want to hold the breath, and when you're going to breathe out, you're going to do it slowly. So you don't let all the air out at once, because you got to make it to 8. So let's try that. And you can repeat that little set 4 times, and that's one complete cycle. Then you're supposed to work up to more cycles. Now, you might get a little lightheaded when you first try this type of breathing, because you're probably not used to it. So make sure you sit down and make sure that you know, do it in a safe environment. Don't do it while you're driving, and then practice and work up to it. And then eventually you're going to feel like you can do more. I often do the 4-7-8 breath right before bed. When I'm trying to fall asleep, if my mind is kind of going, I'll do the 4-7-8 breath. And the next thing I know, I'm asleep. It's amazing. So try out these breathing techniques, work them into your toolkit, and see how they go. Now, it's important, of course, to practice them when you're feeling calm and you're feeling good. You're not going to try to learn them or practice them when you're feeling really stressed out. When you've practiced in a calm state, and so they've become a reflex and second nature, then when you're in a stressed out state, you can hopefully kick into high gear and just pull them out and be able to use them when you need them. Okay, we've made it. We've come to the end. We've come to the question portion of the masterclass. And I know if you're watching the replay, you're not here live. So you can feel free to message me, to send me an email right here, hello@drzarya.com. You can always contact me on Instagram. You can follow me. You can send me a DM. I'm at Dr. Zarya Rubin on Instagram. Head over to my website, www.drzarya.com. There's lots of good stuff there. There's ways to get in touch. There's my free workbook. There's my newsletter. There's a way to join my Facebook group, From Burnout to Brilliance. It's a free private women's Facebook group that's filled with amazing, like-minded women. We've all been through a lot, and we share our stories. We share recipes, funny memes, all kinds of stuff. It's a great supportive environment. And if you want to continue this journey, if you've enjoyed today's class and you want to work with me some more, there's a couple of different ways. Join the Facebook group. Like I said, you can sign up for a free discovery call. So I do offer free one-on-one calls with folks to talk about what you're experiencing, what you're going through, and what might be the best next step. If you feel like doing that, you can find my calendar over on my website and book an appointment. You can also try one-on-one coaching with me. I do offer limited one-on-one coaching spots, an amazing intensive program where we go deep, and I meet with folks virtually, so you don't have to be in Portland, Oregon. That's the good news. And we can meet on video chat, we can meet over the phone, whatever works for you. And we can really make significant changes in your life. I know that a lot of the people that I have helped actually turned up for the webinar today. So that makes me feel really great. And I really do love helping people one-on-one. And I'm really excited to announce that I am launching for the first time a group program, which is the 21-day Thrive program. And it launches February 1st. So it's coming up. And I wanted to do this because I wanted to harness the power of community. I feel like we could all use a little bit of connection these days, that we're isolated, we're behind screens, whatever, COVID. that getting like-minded, powerful women together can really help just harness that collective energy and make the process and the program even more meaningful than just strict one-on-one coaching. It's a different experience, but I'm really excited to share it with you guys. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the group program now. See if it's something that interests you. You can sign up, and there's going to be some special offers at the end of today as well. So, what is the 21-day Thrive program? Well, if you are a smart, passionate woman who is at the end of her rope, this might be for you. You're tired of being tired. Like, I was just so tired of being tired all the time, and I couldn't find any resources to help me. You're lacking motivation, but you want to do things. You know that you're meant for more and you're meant to be doing something important, but you just aren't feeling it right now. You're last on your own list. Yeah, this was definitely me. So, kid comes first, work, husband, life, chores, bills, laundry, everything. And you're an afterthought. You want more. You want things to be different. You just don't really know them different. Oops, there go my earphones. Um, okay, okay. Oh, Zoom. You can't continue like this. And so you want things to be different. You've tried all the things. You've tried acupuncture, you've tried Whole30, you've tried, a cleanse, all these things, and they didn't work. And you're just like, what else can I try? What can I do that's going to work? And you're really ready to make a change. It's a new year, it's 2023. It's really time to do things differently. Now's the time. If not now, when? So, a little bit more nitty gritty details about what the 21-day Thrive program looks like. It's pretty intense. We're together for 21 whole days. You get weekly live coaching sessions with yours truly, and the sessions will be recorded. If you can't attend live, I promise to record them. You get a downloadable, fillable workbook to track your progress and gain valuable insights. It's a really great workbook. I worked super hard on it and I love it. And it's very inspiring. There's weekly themed content. So every week is a different theme. So we focus on that theme for the week. And there's education modules that you can engage with at your own pace. There's going to be like a live call with me. And there's going to be like an office hours time. And then there'll be a follow-up close of the week, like how did the week go for you kind of stuff. We're going to develop a new approach to diet, exercise, stress, and mindset that is sustainable, that actually works, that's not a crash diet, that's not crazy exercise, that's not just like be less stressed. I really pride myself in my coaching skills on helping people actually figure it out, like what to do. How do you do it? Everyone knows, like, I need to be healthy, I need to eat healthy, I need to be less stressed. But the real question is how. And this is how we do it. We're going to do an introduction to meditation and figure out how to develop your own practice that works for you in just minutes a day. And it might be a little different than what you think of as typical meditation. It's going to be really fun, and it's going to be useful, practical, and actually sustainable. Okay. We're going to work on developing boundaries. Boundaries are so important. I realize that they're intimately connected to burnout. This is not something that I had put together in the past when I was struggling with burnout, that boundaries are critical. So I'm going to help you learn how to develop better boundaries and put them into practice. We're going to get deeper into breaking the stress cycle and why that's a key concept for healing. We're going to talk about adrenal health. I mean, that's a whole other talk that I could have given today. I could have spent hours on that, and how your adrenal function and your hormone balance are so important for healing from burnout. And there's something, the concept of adrenal fatigue, it's a bit of a buzzword and trendy topic, but it is actually a concept that a lot of the aspects of it are scientifically legitimate. And it's just your body's way of trying to protect you from chronic stress. But we need to figure out how to heal that. Daily journaling prompts and actions that you can take to jumpstart your healing journey. We're going to do that together. A private community of other amazing, badass women sharing similar struggles. This is the part I love. This is the part that I'm really excited about and that I wanted to create because I love one on one coaching, but I wanted that group experience and that sense of like community and camaraderie. And I'm super excited for it. Exclusive access to me during weekly office hours, and this team cheering you on, rooting for you, and lifting you up. You don't have to do it alone. We can do it together. We're more powerful together. There's some success stories here. You can read about them here. You can also read about them on my website. I've got a lot of different client testimonials. People do tend to love working with me. I'm a lot of fun. I bring humor into everything I do, even though this is serious work. Like, burnout's not funny. There's nothing funny about it, but laughter is also kind of the best medicine. So I try to incorporate it into everything that I do, and we always try to make everything enjoyable and fun and meaningful. Okay, we're back to the questions again. If you've got any questions about the group program, the Thrive program, any questions about anything we covered today, hit me up on all of these different channels and networks. I always get back to folks, always reply to emails and DMs. Okay, now we come to the bonus offers. There's always fun bonus offers on these calls. And you know what? Sometimes those offers are limited to the people who just show up live, but I wanted to give everyone a chance because I know not everyone could show up live. So you get the whole weekend for these bonus offers, okay? So starting today, it's already been changed on the website. So the price has already been changed. If you sign up for the group program, the 21-day Thrive program, it was originally $597, which I think is crazy reasonable price. It's a really good value. It's even less right now, so I'm giving you guys $100 off just for this weekend. There's a celebration of this masterclass, for being here, for watching, for taking care of yourself and putting in the time to really do this. I think you deserve a little bonus. And there's another bonus. So the first 10 people who sign up this weekend are going to get a free private one-on-one coaching session with me. And that session is going to be really valuable. We can cover all kinds of deep stuff. We can really hone in on a personalized plan for you. Of course, the group coaching is going to be amazing, but sometimes having that extra one-on-one really makes all the difference. And the value of this one-on-one call is pretty much the value of the whole program itself. So that's a super good deal. So if you head over to my website, you can find the link. There's a link on Eventbrite. It's in my social media. It's everywhere. You can sign up for the Thrive program. I will send you guys a link also with this recording, so you can check it out. And I really hope that I see you in the group and that you sign up for the group program and we get to work together for almost the whole month of February. It's a short month. So, okay, I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for showing up, for coming to this masterclass. I know there's a lot of other things you could have been doing. I know that time is short, that sometimes when you're feeling burnt out, the last thing you want to do is actively do something to make a change, to make a difference. But if you're here, if you've done this, this is huge. So give yourself a round of applause. Thank yourself for being here, for showing up, for doing something for you, and it is your time to thrive. So if you're ready to take the next step, reach out, sign up for the masterclass, or check out the one-on-one coaching. I would love to work with you. And I hope that I see you over on Instagram or Facebook. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend and that you take some time for yourself and that you do one thing less. Okay. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.